Now, for more on how Trump's policies, from immigration to tariffs, are affecting agriculture and farmers here in the U.S., we're joined by Joseph Glauber. He is a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute. Joseph, good to have you on the program.
No, thanks, Sean.
Well, many farmers voted for Trump, and many now find themselves in a severe bind, saying that they are struggling to find enough workers to harvest crops. How significant is this shortage? What's behind it? And it is absolutely driving up farmers' costs.
Yeah, there's no question the labor shortage is a big issue. It's been an issue for a while, even prior to this administration. We've been struggling with immigration reform and how to ensure enough farm workers to work in agriculture. But it's been particularly rough now with this step up in enforcement and arresting of foreign immigrants in this country, and it hasn't quite shown up in the data yet, but we are seeing certainly signs and a lot of anecdotal evidence, like the story you just ran, in terms of how farmers are being affected, particularly fruits and vegetable producers, dairy producers, and others who depend heavily on labor.
With this data and the research that you have, do you think that farmers are having some buyer's remorse?
Oh, I think you have to look at the bigger picture. There's a lot of things that farmers like on the regulatory side that the Trump administration has promised to do, but this has been a big issue. This combined with the trade policies, which farmers are grappling with, because as was pointed out in the segment, we've seen a big loss in a very important market in China, but also trade tensions with other countries as well. And trade is very, very important to most row crop agriculture and livestock producers as well.
Yeah. With immigration policies under Trump administration tightening and access to seasonal migrant labor going down, how much of today's workforce gap can be traced back to those decisions?
Oh, again, it's hard to say because we don't have firm data on it, frankly. And I think what we are seeing is, again, this anecdotal evidence that there are problems with harvest, but it hasn't shown up, say, in food prices, which you would think you would begin to see if there were shortages that were causing production losses and other sorts of things. That hasn't quite occurred yet, but I think there's no question costs of labor have shot up. And that is cutting into bottom lines for farmers in a big way.
Okay, on this trade side, and this is significant. China, for the first time in decades, has bought no soybeans in the second half of this year, none. And China was once the largest buyer of U.S. soybeans. How did the tariffs and retaliatory measures under the Trump administration change that dynamic so quickly?
Yeah, well, understand that the export sales for soybeans in particular are very seasonal. We sell most of our soybeans within the first 5-6 months of the new crop year. The new crop year begins September 1st. So we're really talking, this is the period when the U.S. typically sells soybeans to the rest of the world, in particular China. And we're just right now not selling very many. We're down considerably, selling none to China, making up a little bit with soybeans going to other markets, but still the loss in overall export markets is having a real toll on soybean prices and returns.
I understand you said, the data's not there. It's anecdotal information so far. It's only been 6 months since Trump took office. But it seems like the
That's
equation...
on the labor side. On the export side, there's clear data.
Yeah, I understood. And the prices for consumers as well. There is information out there that it is going to get worse before it gets any different for consumers. Are you concerned that it's going to get tougher and tougher for farmers because it's such a fine line between profit and loss for them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've already, farmers are already facing very high input costs. Fertilizer prices, other things have been very high this year, quite apart from what's going on with trade policy. Although trade policy plays into that too, because we do import fertilizer ingredients and pesticide ingredients and things like that. But without these export markets, they've really seen a big loss in prices, and prices are down below 2020 levels right now. Margins are quite low for crop producers. The livestock side of the sector is doing fairly well, but the crop side is really struggling. And yes, the Trump administration has talked about coming up with extra money to give farmers to compensate them for these trade losses like they did in 2018, 2019. But farmers, frankly, don't want that. They really
Yeah.
want market revenue. Handouts from the government are transitory at best.
Yeah, they want to stand on their own two legs. Look, farmers form a key part of Trump's base. We talked about that. How do these twin challenges, labor shortages and lost export markets, how do you believe that's going to shape the political landscape heading into the next election?
Well, I think, farmers are a small part of the voting population, but an important part, and they do contribute to campaigns and other sorts of things. They have been generally fairly supportive of Republicans, very supportive of the president. How that's going to shape, I think, really depends on what happens over the next few months. Does, for example, the U.S. cut a deal with China? There's some talk about that. That would change that dynamic very quickly. Does the president come up with monies to sort of compensate farmers? That at least would help soften the blow, and that may at least uh, keep him very popular. There's a lot of policies that he's had that have gone over very well with farmers. So I think it's a balancing act, and but there's no question there's a lot of anxiety in the farm sector right now,
Yeah.
and a lot of people would like to see these trade policies get resolved.